Hello everyone, welcome back, and Barcelona beats Valencia 4-2, and definitely did not look like the most comfortable game. You thought against Valencia with those weather conditions, you thought maybe it was going to be a little bit boring, but definitely not the case. I mean, 4-2 with a red card, just very nervy game for Barcelona. Wasn't the most convincing performance overall, but just some terrible individual mistakes from Barcelona players yet again in these games, and Barcelona, luckily, thanks to Lewandowski getting a hat-trick, they still find a way to get the 3 points. And I'm just going to try and talk about the game overall as it progressed, and in the first 25-30 minutes, I think Barcelona, they looked pretty comfortable. Fermin Lopez was great in that first 25-30 minutes. I think that was his best performance, along with the one against Shakhtar. He was great, but then Ter Stegen, I just don't know what the thought process is there. I said it in my TikTok that maybe he was just trying to get into a highlight reel. I just don't know. He's done that once before, and it looks great, and I've seen it in a compilation a couple times. I'm like, yeah, that's impressive, but risk versus reward. Barcelona, they need a win in this game to try and secure second in La Liga. What are you doing? I mean, that's just terrible. Luckily, Barcelona come back, but they made it so much more difficult on themselves thanks to errors from both Ter Stegen and Araujo. And then after Ter Stegen's terrible mistake, Barcelona are still 1-1. They're comfortable. They're going to be the better team in that game. They're going to have more of the ball. They're going to create more chances, you would think. But then, and like 10 minutes later, Ronald Araujo makes a horrible attempt to try and win the ball. And I just don't know what he's doing there. His decision-making in the past couple weeks has definitely not been up to par with how great a player he is. And he was arguing with the referee, and the commentators were talking about it as well. What are you doing arguing? I mean, that is as blatant as possible. You couldn't have made it easier for the referee. He had no decision to make. It was clear that that was a penalty. So I don't know what Araujo's doing arguing there. I mean, I understand it's probably emotions of the game, but just don't make that tackle. It's so unnecessary, and it's not like he's one-on-one with the goalie. He's off to the side. It's going to be a really difficult finish if he even gets there, but you don't give him that opportunity because you completely wipe him out in the box. And then Barcelona are down 2-1 going into halftime. And then luckily their goalkeeper makes a terrible mistake, gives the ball to Lamine Yamal, and then he completely handballs it. This is my problem with La Liga referees, along with a handful of other terrible things that they've done this season. But, I mean, how did that decision take almost 2 minutes to come into play? I mean, everyone watching the game, seeing that replay, could have seen that was a clear handball. Denial of a goal-scoring opportunity. You have to send him off. He's outside the box. He uses his hand to stop a clear goal. Yeah, it's a red card easily, but the referee lets them play on for a minute longer. And that side referee was horrible today as well. I mean, he missed a couple really bad fouls on Lamine Yamal. Just so clear that Barcelona could have gotten a throw in. They could have gotten a corner. They could have gotten a foul right there. But no, it didn't happen. That guy was horrible over there. But he missed that. That was so blatant too. I mean, he had a clear point of view from that, and still let it go to VAR. That was really interesting. But it was so obvious that was a handball and a red card. But it took them about 2 minutes to come to that decision. That's terrible, to be honest. And you just don't know what could have happened in that minute long. And maybe it's not as big of a deal now because nothing happened. But what if a player gets injured when you know that that's a clear red card? VAR, he has to be talking to the referee, and yeah, that's just so obvious to me that they handled that situation poorly. But yeah, that made the game easier for Barcelona, even though they still struggled to break Valencia down. And then at halftime, Xavi took Kubarsi and Christensen off, and I was a little bit skeptical about taking Christensen off. I understood, bringing Sergio Roberto on, it adds a little bit more to the attack, and in the end, it did work out for Barcelona, but that stability is gone when there's no defensive midfielder. That was a little bit questionable, and Valencia were doing really well to counter, but then with a man advantage, it did help Barcelona. But still, they almost gave up a terrible one-on-one. Pedri, what a tackle. I mean, just 30 seconds after coming on, to make that tackle to save the goal for Barcelona. Ultimately, I mean, if they would have went and scored that would have made things really, really difficult for Barcelona. So hats off to Pedri for that, because he showed a lot of pace, and just to time that tackle perfectly was incredible. So he did great to save that goal for Barcelona. And that center-back pairing of Araujo and Kubarsi today, it was not very good, to be honest. They looked pretty messy. They looked all over the place. And you'd think that partnership, they complement each other really well. So that was a questionable performance from them two, to be honest. And Kubarsi, he definitely didn't have the best game, but he got a yellow card, and it was the right decision for Xavi to take him off and bring on Inigo Martinez, who 5 seconds after he came on had to make a really good tackle that easily could have been a penalty if he got that wrong. So that was great from him. I think Xavi, he did make the right substitutions, and ultimately Barcelona, they found a way to get the 3 points, even though it wasn't the prettiest performance, it wasn't the best game overall, and some really terrible, silly individual mistakes from Barcelona players. But at this point of the season, it's important to get 3 points, and that's what Barcelona did today. And I wanted to talk about Lewandowski because, as you all know, I have been harsh on him this season, and I think his standards in the last year, they've dropped, to be honest. But in these past couple months, he has completely turned it around, and he looks like a great player. I said that game against PSG in the first leg, that was his best performance in a Barcelona jersey, and then gets his first hat trick for Barcelona in La Liga to get them the 3 points. That's great, and he just announced he was staying at Barcelona. He has no intention of leaving in the summer. He has another year on his contract, and yeah, that salary, it looks bad. I don't really want to talk about it now because he just had a hat trick, but it is $20 million a year, and in hindsight, to pay a 36-year-old, $20 million a year, Laporta, I think, could have maybe had that contract situation handled a little bit better, but who knows, maybe he wouldn't have joined if that amount wasn't agreed upon. We don't really know, but yeah, I am a little bit worried about Lewandowski being one of the highest earners on the team. Even though he was great today, he had a hat trick. I don't want to take anything away from that. That contract situation is interesting for Barcelona, and given the financial situation, you hope, yeah, I mean, it's not like you can expect him to lower his salary. I'm not really asking that, but Laporta, that wasn't maybe the best financial decision. But still, Lewandowski, I hope he's going to continue to be an important player for Barcelona next year. And since Xavi announced he was leaving, he has completely turned up. He's been a completely different player since Xavi announced he was leaving, so I hope that continues into next season. I think overall, Barcelona, they did also struggle without a true game breaker. I think Lamine Yamal, he was pretty quiet given his standards. I don't think we should expect much else because he was still good today. It's not like he made that many mistakes, but sometimes he has had a much bigger impact than in that game. I just feel like Barcelona, they did lack a game breaker, and that's, players like Xavi Simons, Nico Williams. Those are players that Barcelona are going to continue to be linked to, and I think if they have the ability to sign one of those players, or even Paulo Dybala, I mean, those players, they could make a big impact on Barcelona, especially against these teams that play low blocks that make it difficult for Barcelona to open up the game. And sometimes you're just missing that creative spark from a player, and I hope Barcelona, if they have finances available, they would make a signing that complements that role, and sometimes what Barcelona is missing and has been missing this season. For Barcelona, I think that's the story of a lot of games this season, to be honest, is they're just not able to unlock a defense, and then they just make one or two terrible mistakes at the back. They gift a goal to the other team, and I feel like Xavi, he set the team up pretty well. I mean, maybe you all would disagree that he didn't do good today. I think he was fine. I think he set the team up well, and they looked comfortable before that terrible error from Ter Stegen, and that's like 1 in 500 games that he would try and do that. And do that badly at taking a touch there. I know what he was trying to do. He was trying to dink it over the guy, and yeah, it would have looked cool in a YouTube compilation. Let's try and win the game. That's the most important thing. Let's go ahead and try and get 3 points. Let's not do that when we're winning 1-0. Yeah, I mean, that's poor from Ter Stegen. I don't think he's really going to try that again, so that's good. But yeah, just really bad individual mistakes again from Barcelona, and that's the reason they were knocked out of the Champions League. And yeah, I mean, that's something that Barcelona, they're going to have to get better at if they want to compete with the top teams around the world. And it's the first game back since Xavi officially announced that he's staying at Barcelona next season. And like I said, I think that's the right idea for the team right now because, I don't know if they had that many options on the market, if there was someone better than him that was going to come in and take his place. Where I felt more confident than I do feel about Xavi right now, I don't think there was many. I would say Julian Nagelsmann and maybe Thiago Motta. Yeah, those were two coaches that I was excited about. But I feel like Xavi coaching the team for one more year, and then in 2025, who knows, maybe as Jurgen Klopp, that's a stretch, I'll be honest, I don't expect that, but maybe there's another coach lined up next year, or who knows how Xavi's going to do this year. We'll see what happens. But in total, the 90 minutes weren't the most convincing, of course, we know that, and I think that was largely due to the mistakes that Barcelona made, because before that goal that they conceded, they did look comfortable, they looked like the better team, they looked like they were going to have a convincing win. It just didn't happen, and luckily Barcelona were able to bounce back. I think the red card that Valencia got, it did help them, but that was a clear red card. Barcelona would have scored if he didn't use his hand outside of the box. So, that was, justified that he got sent off. But I still think Barcelona, sometimes in games like this, against difficult teams in La Liga that sit back and let you have a lot of possession, sometimes they just don't have a player that can unlock the team. And I think we are blessed with being able to watch Messi do that for so many years. We're not expecting a player like him at all, but, we cannot replace him. There's no way. But I think other players, maybe Paulo Dybala, maybe Nico Williams, those are players that I think can keep the other team on the tip of their foot. Like, I just think sometimes it maybe looks a little bit too easy for the other team. Not to take anything away from Valencia, because defensively they were very good and they were very well organized. They made it difficult for Barcelona, but still, don't make it easy for them. It just seemed like every single pattern that Barcelona were playing, it was so obvious what the next thing was going to be. They were just trying to touch on the right side, then they would play it back, then they would switch the play, which was the right idea because then they had a little bit more space over there, but it just wasn't working. It just felt like it was the same exact thing over and over again. There was no shock impact where you just, had the goalkeepers and had the defenders unexpected about what was going to happen next. And so Barcelona, I hope they can sign another player like that in the summer. Overall, I think we can be happy with the 3 points. That's the most important thing, especially towards the end of this season. We're not expecting breakout performances every single week, but you're expecting a little bit better than that with the players that were on the field. And those mistakes, yeah, you just hope those don't happen again. I mean, those were fluke mistakes, especially the one from Ter Stegen and then Araujo. Just not the smartest idea to go in on that tackle. And they, I'm sure, will learn from that. And thank you all very much for watching. Now I'm going to try and speak in Spanish for the last part, just to summarize the game briefly. But thank you all for watching. I very much appreciate it. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Thank you. Y entonces mi parte en español. Para mí fue un partido difícil para Barcelona. Y gracias por los comentarios. Porque yo quiero practicar más en español. Y espero que un día en el futuro yo puedo hablar más en español. Y bien partidos de Xavi, pienso que de Fermín López, de Christensen, no Araujo, no Ter Stegen, no Cubarsí. Lo mínimo fue silencio, quiet, no sé la partido, o la palabra para esto, pero pienso que fue difícil para Barcelona. Valencia es muy bien defensivo, pero sí. Y es bien para hoy, perdón, pero a veces es difícil para mí en español y quiero practicar más y pienso que tú y todos en los comentarios pueden ayudarme. Quiero practicar más en español. Y gracias por todo y espero que tú y tu familia y amigas tienen un bien día. Gracias.